And now I'm ready to start modeling. Again, you just want to use the layer 0 to model. Now, if we start first with the walls or the floors, it doesn't matter. But why don't we just go ahead and start modeling with the floor and what would be the porch. I'm not going to do all the details. I just want to give you a basic idea as to how you could start modeling. We'll work on the front face here to insert some windows and doors, and pretty much the way I do it there is going to be the way that you do it all the way around the model. Okay, so for example, what I could do here is start with a rectangle, and let's say if I come in close here, you can see we have several lines, right? All I'm doing is just zooming in. And you can see we have the lines of the finish as well as the stud wall lines there. Okay. Now, in terms of what we have as a floor, the floor is going to be aligned with the stud wall, right? So if I go over the corners of the stud wall here and then zoom out and then look at the opposite corner here, you'll notice here's the end of the wall, right here. Now, how am I going to be able to use this for my porch? Well, what I could do is finish the rectangle here. Okay, now you can see the surface that was created. Okay, now if you have trouble seeing, you might want to take a look at your styles. For now, what I would say is if you use the default styles, look at something like the architectural design style or the default style, okay, and that way you can actually see your model elements and entities as you create them. Later on, we'll talk about styles for presentation. But for now, what I can do is, now that I have this surface, I can orbit in such a way that I can touch the top surface here and then push, pull, okay? Push, pull. With that, I can align it to the origin, and there's my 4-foot foundation wall, right? And that would actually include what would be the rough floor at the top portion of it. Now you'll notice over here that we've got the porch that extends a little bit further out, that actually aligns with the finish, right? So here's another way that we could use push-pull. This time, if I use Control, what I do here is I create a new and separate surface. And for that, I can align that with the end of the porch there. See if I see it clearly. Okay, right here. And you'll notice how I can snap to vertices. Now you'll notice this side is a little bit short, but again, I can just push-pull that edge and have it align with the vertex or any point in the model that is the reference. Okay? As you can see there. Let's try that again on this side. All right, so I can just, if I look here, you can see it come all the way forward, but I have this little portion that I have to add. So if I click on the face with push-pull, just pull it and then align it with the edge in the DWG file there. Now this would just be my floor and my porch, and of course I could spend more time to do the stairs. But just to keep it basic, keep in mind if you single click, you touch a face, but if you double click, you get the face and the edges. However, if you triple click, you get all the faces and edges connected. That way I can make this into a component, and this will be like the floor or foundation if I want to call it that. And then I just want to make sure that I replace the selection with the component. So that would be my floor, for example. And if I turn off that layer for the DWG, you can see there's the floor, just like that. Now we've got the walls we want to make. So once again, if I turn on the DWG, this time I'll create another rectangle. But this rectangle, I'll start from the outer edge of the finish. Okay, from the outer edge of the finish. So here, to the opposite corner, here's a new surface. Now, because I have a separate component there, you'll notice when I use push-pull, only this surface will be pulled up, right? And all I'm doing is I'm using the middle button on my 3-button mouse to orbit. But as I push up or pull up, I can type in the exact distance, 9 feet. Just type it in, and you can see down there in the value control box, the 9 feet. And there's the height of the room, right? Now, here too, if I just triple click, I select all the edges and faces connected to the walls there, and I can make this a separate component. Call this walls, and replace selection with component. Now, when I'm working on the roof, you'll notice that the roof here, it covers the floor plan, but it also goes out ahead of the porch. What I would recommend is that you first create a component that represents the roof plate line. So to do that, I'm going to go again and use rectangle and use this corner here of the roof to the opposite corner of the roof over here. And once again, if I use spacebar to go back to selection mode, if I double click, now I just get the edges and the face, and then I could make that a component. We'll call this roof plate. Now, what I'm going to do is move that roof plate from the floor line to the roof plate line, just like that. Okay? This is an entire roof plate line that I moved it up to 9 feet. Now, for those of you who are using the components, the plugins here, you'll notice that with your Instant Roof Pro, okay, it'll be located under plugins. And what we'll want to do is we'll use the surface that represents the outline of the roof. And we need to indicate also which faces are going to be the gable faces. And we'll use make roof to make our roof. So here's the component, right? That's our roof plate. If I double click on it, here's the face. If I shift click on the front edge and the back edge and keep the face selected, I'm indicating that this will be the area of the roof to be covered, and the front and the back faces will be gable faces. So when I go to plugins, I'll go over here to Instant Roof Pro, make roof, and this is where you can explore, experiment, explore, have fun with it. I'm going to be using a Craftsman roof. I'll be changing, just for now, for this example, I'll be just changing the slope. But you can change all these other settings, and we could take a look at this in detail later. Now what I'll do here is make sure that we have a 7.2 or 712 roof slope. And then also here, you'll notice the eave width. We want 16 inches all the way around. Okay? Also, you can determine how you want the ends of the roof to look. I'm going to use a square cut soffit it. But again, you can repeat this process just to explore and experiment with the different settings. Once I click OK here, right, you'll have the option to save this as a new style. I'm not going to do that, but I'll just click OK. And then you should see your new roof design. All right. Now, obviously, as we take a look at this, we don't have the completed elevations, but we have the base model. Okay. Obviously, we need posts, railings, but we could go into this much later, and we would also require some doors and windows, which we'll look at a little bit later as well. And if I just, to illustrate to you, let's turn off the DWG here, and in order to get the elevation views, what you could do is use your standard views. Okay, if it's oriented correctly, where you have your front face at the bottom of the screen and your back face towards the top of the screen, when you use front view, that's exactly what you'll be looking at. In order to get the elevation view, take a look at view here, or at camera, and switch to parallel projection. Okay, this will be the type of view that you want in order to show elevation. And you'll be able to use your standard views to toggle between each of those elevation views. Okay? Later on, we'll talk about how we're going to use scenes to save these views, from which we'll be able to export the line drawings back into DWG format for presentation in our AutoCAD file. Okay? So up to this point, this will be the basic outline. And just real quick here, we'll take one quick look at windows. If I select the wall component here and I right click and edit the component, you'll see the rest of the model fade back. Now it still may obscure what I'm working on, but if you take a look at your model info here and you take a look at components, what you'll see here is as you work with the component editing, okay, you can choose to make the rest of the model fade back lighter or darker, or completely hide the rest of the model. So you can come here to model info, to components, to change the display of the model, the way it looks while you're working with components. And all you have to do is make your change here and close this window, and then you'll see as you work, and then as you exit a component, right? And as you work into another component, how it just isolates that piece of the model. Okay, that might make it easier. You'll see here as we work with the windows, okay, and we turn on the layers here for the DWG, I can't see it. I know it's there, but I can't see it. And the problem here is that what you'll want to do is you want to use X-ray. Okay, and so here, in order to see the rest of it, if I go back here to model info, I can uncheck the hide, right, and make my adjustments with this. But that way I can actually see the locations of the windows. And what I'm going to be doing here is using the tape measure in order to locate the position and the size of the windows. So if I use tape measure, I can click on the edge of the model. You can see there how I get onto the face, right, on the edge. Click and then drag along the face. You see the red axis there? Shift to constrain, and then come all the way to the opening, right, of the window on one side. You see how I'm snapping to the front edge there? Click, and you have a guide, and do the same thing with the other side. So if I click on this edge, I pull that construction line, shift to constrain, and then snap it to that edge. So we have the left and right openings. Then as I go from the bottom here, I'm going to go along the blue axis, and I'll use numeric input for 6 feet 8 inches, and I have the top. As you can see when I zoom out, there's the top, and then I could use that to offset a line going straight down along the Z axis. Again, make sure you see the blue axis, and we'll do that at 5 feet. Once you have that, you can use your components, and you'll be able to navigate to something like architecture. And it doesn't look like we have them here right now. Let's see, I'll use my local ones. Here's my SketchUp libraries. If I look at architecture and I look at windows, I can look for a similar window. Okay, and when I pull it in, you'll notice how it aligns with the face, right, of the model over which you're going to place it on. You'll notice here it should align with that front face. And if I need to, I can reposition my view so I can clearly see the intersection of where I want to place it, right? So when I click there, I can place it, and then now I can take a look to resize it. And to resize it, I'll use scale, and I'll use the intersections of those guidelines together with the middle grip button to resize it. So you can see there how I can snap to the intersection. Now, just to show you what I've got so far, if I zoom out, if I take off the X-ray, now you can see I have my window. And this is how we'll place doors and windows, first by locating them with guides and using our XREF together with X-ray, as you can see up here, to be able to locate the position and size of all our doors and windows. Okay? Next week, what we'll do is we'll continue with modeling, and we'll also take a look at saving each of the views as scenes and then exporting those scenes for use as DWG line work in your original floor plan presentation.